Let me know when you guys are all set. Everybody good? Thank you very much. Hey, good afternoon. My name is Todd Chamberlain. I'm the Chief of Police with the Aurora Police Department, and I just want to thank you very much for coming together. And unfortunately, this is coming together to talk about an incredibly tragic incident that occurred in the city of Aurora this weekend. And this incident, I'm going to give a quick overview on what occurred, how it occurred, and what the investigation was, and then ultimately the fact that the individual who mercilessly and unfortunately committed these crimes is now in custody. So the overview, again, a violent incident occurred this Sunday in Aurora. Our suspect is a man who entered the United States illegally from Venezuela. And this individual forced entry into an apartment, and he opened fire on numerous individuals that were inside that apartment. A confrontation actually occurred. It started with a domestic violence incident that has been ongoing. There was a report of domestic violence that occurred a year ago. It was addressed. That relationship obviously had not gotten any better. The suspect on Sunday or early Saturday evening was again involved in some sort of domestic violence incident with his partner, with his wife. And he got to a point where he was enraged. He left the location and said that he was going to go get a gun. No contact was made with law enforcement at that time. No response was done on behalf of the Aurora Police Department. Our suspect went out into the community. He illegally purchased a firearm. After purchasing that firearm, he traveled around the city of Aurora with another individual that we've identified. And at some point, he actually fired a number of rounds from that handgun to test to make sure that it was working. After testing his weapon, making sure that it was working, there was also discussion that he was high on cocaine as well as intoxicated. He returned back to the apartment that he got involved in the original confrontation with, forced open entry into that apartment, and then subsequently fired on the individuals inside of that location. Our officers responded to that location. They immediately identified victims of that shooting. The suspect has fled. The individuals involved, a number of people. It included children, ages 1, 6, 7, 9, and 15. 2 adult women, one who was the suspect's wife, one who was the sister of the wife, and then an adult male who was also in the apartment. So when the suspect returned, the 15-year-old answered the door. The suspect tried to force entry in. She tried to close the door. The suspect, he put his foot in the doorway, holding the door in place, and then he pushed the door completely open. The children and the women in that venue, immediately in fear for their life, gathered and huddled together and tried to run into the bathroom. As they were running into the bathroom, the suspect followed those victims and then randomly opened fire. He shot 2 of them in the head, which included the wife and also the sister. The sister expired on scene. She was killed. She was 26 years of age. And the suspect's wife, who was 30 years of age, is presently in the hospital with major trauma, and her expectations of survival are limited. But we pray and we hope for her recovery without question. When our officers got this information, they immediately started to focus on the actions of the suspect and trying to make sure that he doesn't impact anybody else's life in and around the city of Aurora or anywhere in the state of Colorado. They did a methodical search of the area. They utilized technology. Again, we were without question dependent upon flock technology in this event. We were able to get a ID or an identification of the suspect's vehicle that was used. We were able then to start tracking it, utilizing flock technology to verify where this individual was going in and around. The problem was that some of the license plate was misdiagnosed as far as what it was, what the exact numbers were, so we had a challenge of trying to figure that out. The police work that ultimately went into it is our officers focused on the vehicle. They focused on the license plate, and after several different attempts to locate or to change or modify in the queue of that technology base of flock, they were able to modify it to a point where they actually got a hit on a vehicle this morning that occurred in the area of Mississippi and Chambers. Our officers went to that area. They located the possible vehicle that was involved. It was located in a Taco Bell parking lot, and they subsequently took that suspect into custody without incident. As of this morning, our officers brought that suspect into the police headquarters and started an investigation. The one thing that I really want to detail about this and make sure comes out, again, the foundation of the incident itself. This was a tragic loss of life. This event occurred by an individual who, quite frankly, should not have ever been in this country in the first place. Our suspect, again, that you can see the photograph of, pictured up there. Again, when you ask the question about why is he here, what was the circumstance, I want to name this individual. I want this individual to be known because, again, the terror that he caused to this family, the terror that he caused to that apartment complex, the terror that he caused that community should never have happened in the first place. That individual is known as Michael Jordan Costello Forensica. And again, he migrated to this country. The first documentation that we have, he came in December of 23. We know that he had contact with law enforcement prior. That occurred in Florida, where he was subsequently arrested for a traffic violation. There was also, as I mentioned at the very beginning, a report of contact with law enforcement here in Aurora for another domestic violence incident that occurred involving his wife. At that time, there was no probable cause for arrest or no information that was able to proceed the case further. Our aspects on this and the conclusion of what occurred here today, again, it came in a large part based upon our relationship and affiliation with agencies outside of local government. It came with the support and the help of HSI and ICE. We were able to ask them questions specifically about who or what they think this suspect is. They, without question and unhesitatingly, without any due regard to themselves, supplied us with information that was integral to the apprehension of this suspect. They gave us information about who he was when he came into this country. They gave us the actual photo that you see up on the board. They gave us an idea of where this individual could be, what is his background, what is his history, and what was his prior arrest in Florida, and what happened during that period. And the reason I bring that up because, again, this is not to politicize an event, but this is to say that that affiliation and that connection of working with federal entities outside of local jurisdiction had a huge impact on this event. And that is something I think can't be underscored and it can't be undersold. If we as law enforcement officers don't feel open to have communication and contact with federal agencies, that without question would have hindered this investigation. This investigation, without question, is a tragedy. Again, we have individuals that were involved in this event that should never have been placed in that position. We had 5 children, the ages that I read off to you, which is absolutely astounding, had to see something that no child should ever have to see. We had a sister of our victim right now who was killed, and we have our victim who expired. All of these situations speak volumes about the events of what occurred that Sunday morning. I truly want to acknowledge our officers, their tenacity, their skill, their involvement in ensuring that this individual, this violent suspect, was tracked down, was stopped. It speaks volumes about what is occurring in the city of Aurora. The Aurora Police Department will not allow this to occur to our community. We will not allow this to occur anywhere in any part of our city. Our officers are dedicated to ensuring that if a crime like this cannot be prevented or stopped beforehand, it will definitely be addressed afterwards. Within one day, our officers identified the suspect, they identified the vehicles, They identified the behavior pattern, and they ultimately took all of that information through hard police work and located the suspect. That suspect is now not out in our community. He is not out in the state of Colorado. He is not out anywhere in this country. Instead, he is behind bars, and he will get his due process. So again, to the community, I want to make sure that you understand the Aurora Police Department supports you. We will not allow events like this to occur or to take place, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that we use everything as far as our staffing, as far as technology that is out there, as far as relationships with local, federal, and state partners to ensure that individuals that commit crimes like this are held accountable. I really want to articulate out again our thanks to the family. They were integral as far as helping to ID this individual as well. Again, the tragedy they went through, the children involved in this were part of the identification as well. There was a problem as far as verifying exactly spelling of names and full names and things like that based upon his immigration status. But that family really stepped forward and helped and became a part of this investigation in an unfortunately tragic way. Without that involvement, again, it would have been a very different story. Without the involvement of HSI, it would have been a very different story. Without the involvement of these dedicated officers that, again, did not stop from the time they got this call to the time this individual was detained, it would have been a very different story. I also want to acknowledge our detective personnel. Through the use of technology, through the use of tenacity, and through the use of their skill set, they were able to identify this individual as well, follow where and when and how he went, and then ultimately provide that information out in a system, in a place, in a way that led towards his apprehension. This is something that came together, unfortunately, for a very bad event, but came together with a positive conclusion. And the conclusion is that this individual who should not have been in this country in the first place, this individual who should not have been involved in the crimes that he was committing, who has demonstrated a pattern of violence, has demonstrated a pattern of neglect towards those he cared for and supposedly loved, is no longer on the streets, and he is now in custody. So I'd like to say again, thank you to the officers. Thank you to our detective personnel. Our sorrow and our heart goes out to the victims. And the message to the community, again, is very solid and very steadfast. We are here to serve you. We are here to make sure that you get the justice you deserve, and we will do everything within our power and authority to make sure that incidences like this, if unfortunately they ever do occur, which if we cannot prevent them, that the individuals who are involved in it are held accountable and swiftly apprehended and taken into custody. With that, I'd like to open it up to any questions.
Chief, was this suspect involved in any gang activity?
Right now, we don't know, but the one thing that did come out in the interview, which I think is kind of telling, is that he said he was going to go get a handgun, and he knew exactly where to go. So he left the area, he went to a local park, he made contact with people that he obviously had relationships or contacts with, and at that point he purchased this handgun. This is the same handgun that after he purchased it, him and his friend, who again, based on the information that we have right now, were high on narcotics and under the influence, drove around the city of Aurora and fired the weapon up into the air multiple times. We also know that from talking with the family members that he has a history of this, that he has used narcotics extensively in the past, and that's why there was such a fear factor related to him being in and around the family, and that's what caused a big part of the earlier conflict. We also know that he has told his family members that he has gotten guns in the past, so I doubt very highly that those guns were ever picked up for anything that was not criminal in nature. Again, hopefully that will come out as the investigation continues to unfold.
Do you have a location on where those shots were fired?
Yeah, the shots actually, again, and this kind of goes back to the investigation of our personnel here. The shots were fired somewhere in the area of Tense and Sable. Our officers actually went back, and our detectives went back to that area and located the 4 casings that were expelled from that handgun. So that kind of gave us the pattern of what was occurring, how it was occurring, and when it was occurring. But to be able to have that investigative prowess to go back, locate those casings, start to get the story and develop that was huge.
You talked about the prior contact with law enforcement. Was that after the 2023 entry?
That was.
The contact in Florida, and what was that? What was the nature of that contact?
Again, it was a traffic violation in Florida. So again, he came illegally into the country in 23. He never at any time filed for any type of legitimate process to get started into the process of becoming a citizen. And again, in Florida, sometime he was picked up for a traffic violation and issued a citation. Last year, we also had one call for a domestic violence incident that actually occurred with the same individuals that were our victims today.
And was he arrested in that case?
That case, he was not. He was detained, but there was no probable cause as far as the case, and there was limited information about what occurred and how it occurred. That would have been an example, too, where, again, when you look at that opportunity for intervention, for possible removal, again, to stay within the boundaries of our state statutes, to stay within the boundaries of our laws, that probably had that individual been identified at that time. There was some misspelling as far as the name, which caused some issue. But that is where I hope in the future, where we can, as law enforcement, have that opportunity to have more contact with HSI, have more contact, especially and specifically when individuals are involved in criminal activity like that, not to have any hindrances or any type of issues related to that communication with HSI or anybody else who could have probably addressed this issue a lot quicker, and we might not have had the incident that we had this weekend.
After the contact with the HSI, they are considered to deport this suspect?
Right now, he's going to go through his due process. So again, we are going to hold him accountable for the homicide that he was involved in, as well as the 7 other aggravated assaults that he was involved in. So that's where we are going. We are going through with the court process on this. What occurs after that, that is something, again, that we're not nowhere at that point, but right now we're focused specifically on the crimes and filing those crimes with our district attorney's office.
As a chief police, what do you say about these people against the flood cameras and against the communication with federal agency as immigration?
Yeah, I say they're misinformed and I say they're misguided. Again, I've seen that as well. First talking about the technology, and again, I'm just giving my opinion on it, but I'm giving an opinion that I think is based on where we are at as far as a society. And when we have that opportunity for technology, again, we are constantly moving forward with new technology, new ideas that improve and help life. The technology that was used today, which was Flock, again, this individual would not have been located without that technology. That technology allowed for this individual to be tracked. It allowed for this technology or this individual to be identified, and it ultimately allowed for this individual to be apprehended this morning. Had it not been for that technology, he would still be out. And again, there was always questions and concerns, and again, when we partnered with HSI on this, that was one thing we did, is we flagged at the border to make sure that if he tried to cross the border, that he would be apprehended at that point, because we really didn't know where he was going to go. But the fact that he was only blocks away from the actual incident where it started, sitting calmly in a car eating a sandwich, that's problematic. And it's also problematic that had we not had this technology, again, when you say people, oh, it's infringing on people's rights, again, this isn't about the rights of people. We're not looking or trying to find everybody that does everything. This technology is used for the apprehension of individuals that are involved in criminal activity. And that goes in much the same line with our involvement with HSI. Again, we don't want to get involved with HSI. That they have their own role, they have their own mission. But what we want to make sure that we do is that we utilize the skill set that they have. And they have a skill set that allowed us to help identify this individual much quicker than what we could have done on our own. We had an individual who came from another country, from Venezuela, very limited information on, very limited contact. And again, their involvement in this was integral as far as being able to identify who this individual was, what was some of the historical aspects of this individual, and how could we best use our resources to take this suspect into custody. So when I hear people that are apprehensive, or communities that are apprehensive about those two relationships, it's troubling. Because I think what feels good by the heart, and you think, oh, this is great, we're not going to have cameras on every corner, we're not going to have relationships with another law enforcement agency at a federal level, I really think it's misguided. Because had those two things not been in place for this event, this suspect would still be out on the streets right now as we're having this conversation. And again, what he did to that group of people on Sunday night is something that I guarantee you that he could easily do to somebody else again in the future. This was somebody that did not need to be on the streets. It was somebody that did not need to be in this country. And again, it was somebody that needed to be addressed. And those two forms truly help that.
At this point, we can know if he is part of the TDA?
Again, right now, I don't have any information on that. That's going to come out more as the investigation continues to unfold. Anything else?
Can you talk about how disconcerting it is that he just went to somebody, called him up and got a gun? That, you know, even though there's the checks and balances in the state for background checks, he circumvented that. Are you looking into who provided the weapon to you?
Yeah, this investigation is going to be ongoing, and that is one part of it without question. Again, I think that speaks volumes when you talk about, you know, weapons and the monitoring of weapons. Again, if a criminal really wants weapons, a criminal is really going to go get weapons. And that is really the challenge here that we have to focus on. The statement made by the family is that he has done this in the past, that he just basically calls somebody up and goes buys a weapon. Last night is a perfect example of that. This individual who was in this country illegal, so again, he did no processing as far as what was right, and he took those same steps as far as getting firearms. He didn't go through a background check. He didn't go to a testing process. He didn't have to have identification. All he had to do was drive to a local park, make a contact with somebody that he knows, who is probably, again, based on what I understand and what I know, probably within the same situation that he is. And he purchased a handgun and he drove down the streets of Aurora, testing out that handgun while he drove. And then he ultimately used that same handgun to kill people, to kill a human being, and to frighten 5 children, and to shoot another woman in the head. And to me, that's a problem.
Chief, you talked about this previous incident where you had contact with him and then compared to now. Nothing's changed in state law in that time that would change the way you contact HSI, correct?
That's correct.
So is there something that could have gone differently during the previous contact?
Again, I think that as we're evolving and as we are getting more into the arena of dealing with this influx, specifically here in Aurora, but I think many other cities within the United States that saw that huge influx. Again, it's like I've been talking about since I've been here. We had 40,000 some individuals drop into the city of Aurora, and trying to build those relationships where we understand who these individuals are, what are the ones that came here for a better life, and what are the ones that came here to cause crime and to cause havoc. That is the direction that we are trying to figure out. I think right now in Colorado, again, we have the right, if an individual is involved in criminal activity, to be involved in that relationship and to work with federal, state, and local partners. The problem is that when you look at this, there's also that apprehension component or that people, officers specifically, feel like, well, I don't want to be judged on the information that I'm providing because I'm not sure if I'm going to get hung up by the Attorney General, if I'm within the parameters of the law. It's a huge education component that we are trying to work in so that we make sure our officers have a clear understanding of what they can and what they cannot do. And that's the struggle. And then when you see incidents that occur in other parts of Colorado where officers in good faith pass information trying to get an individual that they believe is involved in criminal activity and then ultimately get penalized for that, that's a challenge. And so that's something that we are trying to navigate without question here in Aurora, to make sure that our officers are educated, to make sure that they have understanding, to make sure they know what they can and cannot do. And that's something that we're really focused on. The big part about this too, and I want to really make sure that this gets out to the community as a whole, is that again, law enforcement, municipal law enforcement, we are not involved in immigration. That is not our role. And that has not changed ever. As long as I've been in law enforcement, that has always been incredibly consistent with municipalities and immigration enforcement. So if there's a victim of a crime, again, this woman, I don't know, she wasn't going to call the police right away from what we initially got on the interview. She says, I'll call later. Now, had that been something where she called us immediately, maybe this tragedy wouldn't have happened. Maybe we could have taken her into custody. Maybe we could have taken her into protective services. Maybe we could have gotten her children in a different place. So the one thing that I really want to leave here, though, is that anybody who is a victim of crime, no matter your status, we are here to support you, and this department is here to support you, and that is 100% never going to change. Now, the problem is, again, is when we're dealing with individuals that are involved in that criminal activity, is making sure that we have the connectivity, we have that relationship to use the resources that we have that can result in an intervention as opposed to a response.
To be clear, did the family enter the country with him at the time, or were they already here and he came here?
Yeah, the family is also Venezuelan, so we're more than likely they migrated up as well. I don't know if it was all at the same time. I don't want to give information that I don't have specifics on regarding that.
So the woman was killed was his wife?
No, the woman who was killed was his sister, the sister of the wife. The wife was shot in the head, and she is right now in the hospital, and again, she is on life support.
And the children are related to this suspect?
3 of the children are related, 2 of them were not, and then there was another male who was in that house as well, and again, he was not related at all.
Just a final question, what happened with these kids? Were they minor or maybe undocumented?
Yeah, again, that's all getting worked out right now. The main thing that we are concerned about is their care and their safety. And so we have our victim service units, which again do an amazing job. They have connected with all of our victims. They are working with all of our victims to make sure that they are at a much better place than where they were Sunday night. The tragedy of what unfolded is something they are going to navigate with the support of our victim services. They have also been relocated to different housing, and we are going to continue to support them and help them. Any other questions? Thoughts?